Hi, my name is Diana and welcome to MyoCore. Today I'm going to be doing this video. I don't really know if it's like a new video, but I haven't seen anybody do it, but also didn't look to see if anybody's done it. But I was watching Haley from Haley Hughes. I love her. That's my girl. And one thing I noticed about her is that she like has no problem with liking books everyone hates. Like everyone hated Riley Sager's newest book that came out last summer, and she had the fucking time of her life, and she had no problem with liking it. She's like, I know a lot of people didn't like this book, but I did, and so what? And I respect her so much for that. And so at the end of the year, when I was looking through like all of my books that I read, because I changed my ratings at the end of the year because I really think about it, and I was like looking through some of the books I rated, and I just noticed that like some of the books that I've rated lowly, or they came out and then people hated them, so I lowered the rating, I still really enjoy those books. And I'm like, so fucking what? I don't care if everyone else hated this book and I loved it. I had a good time. So I'm going to be telling you about books that I love that everyone hates, and hopefully this is encouraging everyone else, including myself, to move forward and to like things that everyone hates, even if they hate it and not care. It's funny because I can hate things that everyone loves and not give a damn. It's fun to me. But like if everyone hates a book and I liked it, I'm like, oh, like did I miss something? Like what does everyone hate about this book? Like whatever. But yeah, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the intro, so let's just get into it. So the first book that I have is Catherine House. This is a dark academia book. It's by a black author. It's about this girl who goes to this school, and it's a college, and the college is like really fucking weird, and you go through her 4 years at this college, and it's just like such a weird time, and there's like weird things going on, and the teachers are weird, and there's like this thing where they discipline you where I think it's like if you are doing bad in your classes, there's a way that they discipline you where they put you in this tower naked, and it's like, what the fuck? But I noticed that like people who loved Bunny don't really like this book, whereas I didn't really like Bunny, but I love this book. Although there are some people who like love both, but I personally like this book. I think that things are weird were still being explained, or like there's still things being left in the open, but a lot of things were explained, whereas in Bunny things were weird and they just didn't really make sense, and I really don't like that. And like I know that worked for a lot of people, but it didn't work for me. Whereas in this book I feel like it examined that, it executed that a lot better, and this also has like bunnies in it, and I just feel like it just executed it a lot better. The next book I have may be controversial, but it's The Maidens. This is another dark academia book. I noticed with like a lot of dark academia books, people do not like them. I read this book really fast, so I think that's why I like this book a lot. And also this book has a plot twist in the end that like I personally didn't see coming, and it shocked me. And my thing is like, if the book is a thriller and like the ending doesn't really like shock me, then I probably like will like be like 3 stars. But if it shocked me, I give it 5 stars, because I just look for, when I'm reading thrillers, I look for a plot twist, something that I didn't see coming, something that I see shocking. And this book had something that I never saw coming. Rather it was ethical or not, I never saw it coming. No. So this book is about this woman who niece is in this college, and a bunch of students at this college keep going missing. And so yeah, a bunch of students at this college keep going missing, and so she takes it upon herself to go to this college, and she meets this professor who has like this secret like group called the Maidens where they meet, and it's like very much like The Secret History, not like the book, but like that group of kids. And yeah, you're trying to figure out like what happened. And personally, like I don't know, like this book perfectly did like one of those closed, I don't know what they're called, but the thrillers where it's like a group of people and like everybody's a suspect. And like I feel like this book executed that perfectly, and I don't know how to say it without saying too much more, but like this book kept your focus on a particular person for so long that like you had nothing but to suspect them. So then when the twist was revealed, I was kind of like, fuck, I wasn't even thinking about other people. And I feel like that is how you execute one of those type of thrillers, where you make the audience focus on one person and you're like, there's no way this is not the person, and then it's not the person and you're like, well shit, you know. And so I get a lot of people did not like this book, but like twist wise, I'm like, I don't know, when I read thrillers I don't really care about the characters, I don't really care about what they have going on, I don't really care about what they're doing, because personally, authors, in my opinion, authors don't really write thrillers for the characters. They just write it for a story, and that's just how I read it, because I haven't really met a thriller character that I'm like, I love this character, because I feel like the characters are just vessels. I feel like I'm talking too much, so yeah. The next book I have is The Paw Bears Club. This is one of my best books of 2022, and this book is very widely hated. I've only ever seen one other person like this book, and that is Kayla from Books and Lala. I had a fucking ball with this book. I know there are a lot of booktubers who did not like this book, like Gabby Reese did not like this book, and Jordan Line also did not like this book. And I understand why, because this book is what is the word I'm looking for? This book is promoted as a like horror, and it most definitely is not. This book is about this guy, and he is writing this book. So the book that we're reading is his book, and he is concerned about one of his friends, and he thinks that she is a vampire, and she is reading his book and annotating it. And they also were like in this Paw Bears Club together. I don't really know why it's called the Paw Bears Club, because that takes up like maybe 5% of the book. But I find this book so interesting because he is writing this novel about how he thinks his friend is a vampire, and she is just like reading this and she's annotating it, and he'll say something happened and she'll be like, this did not fucking happen. I also listened to this book through audio. I found this book like very funny. It was like a very like unserious book to me. I think that's why. And like it also like it's vampires, and I pretty much love anything vampires, and I just really liked that this book was like, was she a vampire, wasn't she a vampire, like was he tripping, did he make all of this shit up? Like I just really love that aspect of the book, and I just thought it was like really entertaining and funny. And though it wasn't horror, so like I understand why a lot of horror fans did not like this, because it was not horror. It's kind of like how it was with Addie LaRue when it was promoted as like a book where the girl falls in love with the devil, and then you read the book and that's absolutely not what the fuck it was about. And I was just like so angry, and I gave the book like 2 stars because I was so mad that it was like promoted. So I definitely understand why people don't like this book. I personally just had the time of my life. I listened to the audiobook. I was playing The Sims while I listened to this audiobook, and it was just something fun and quick and funny, and the annotations are just absolutely hilarious. Like the female main character is funny, and I feel like the annotations in the audiobook was just read perfectly at like the perfect time, and I feel like I could not have read it any other way. I feel like if I read it myself, I wouldn't have been able to, like, I wouldn't have read it in the way that like it was supposed to be read, if that makes sense. And so the next book I have is my favorite book of all time, Ninth House. Now I know like this book is kind of like a asterisk. This is kind of like questionable, because there are a lot of people who love this book, there are a lot of people who hate this book. If you go on Goodreads, this book has a 4-star rating, which is deserved. But I remember when this book was first coming out, and like people had arcs, a bunch of booktubers hated this book, and I remember I did not want to read it because everyone else hated it. And so I don't know what made me decide to give it a read. I don't know what it was, but I didn't like the cover. Mind you, this is like one of my favorite covers that I own. This is the UK edition. I still want to go back and buy the US edition. Same with Hellbent. Like I hated that cover when it first came out, and now I'm like obsessed with it. It's like nothing special about these covers, but I love it. I don't know, I love them. And so I like remember when this book came out, like I did not give a fuck about this book, didn't care about the cover. All of my favorite booktubers hated it at the time. Everyone who had arcs hated it. People were struggling to read it. Like I remember there were like literally 3 booktubers I can tell you right now that like hated the book. So I don't know what made me read it. And I was in this group chat with a bunch of my friends, and we were all kind of like buddy reading it, but like not really. And like as we can see, this is my favorite book, but a lot of booktubers hated this. I know it's different now. It's a very like polarizing book. Like before it was coming out, everyone hated it, and it came out and a lot of people were loving it, and then after that a lot of people were like hating it. And so now it's just like I don't know what people think about this book. I just know that I fucking love it, and I had the time of my life. I've reread Hellbent twice. I read it the day it came out and the day after, and I'm going to be on my 3rd reread once I get the copy of Hellbent, because I'm going to be transferring my ebook annotations to the physical book. And I just like absolutely am obsessed with this story, these characters. Oh shit, I didn't even tell you what it's about. This is about Galaxy Alex Stern, who can see graves, which are ghosts, and she is going to Yale. She got a full ride scholarship to Yale, and she works with the secret society, and she basically like oversees their rituals and stuff because she can see ghosts. And it is about her and like this mystery that you are following because people are dying in the first book and nobody knows what the fuck is going on. And it's a dark academia book, but it's contemporary fantasy, so I feel like if you are not a fantasy girl, this is the perfect book for you because it is contemporary. It does not have a lot of fantasy elements at all. Really the only thing is that she can see ghosts from what I can remember. And I personally feel like if you want to read dark academia but you don't want like the fantasies where somebody's in school and they like, you know, like you don't want deadly education where it's like fantasy, but you also don't want the secret history where they're just like basic, not basic, but you want a little bit more of the secret history, you want a little bit less of deadly education, then like Ninth House is the book for you. Okay, so the next book is controversial. It is Sarah J Maas. I read this book earlier this year. Okay, so I read, what is the first book called? I read Crescent City 1, let's just say that. And I didn't particularly love it. I gave it 3 stars. I didn't really think I was going to continue on with the series because, not gonna lie, if I give a book 3 stars, I don't really continue on with the rest of the books. But for this one, I saw Kari from Kari Can Read. Damn, there's a lot of people I'm gonna have to tag in this video. I saw Kari from Kari Can Read do a video where she read this book and she broke down what happened in it. This book, like, I love this book. I gave this book 5 stars because, like, so when she did the video, like, the entire book, like, gagged me. Like, the entire book gagged me, okay? So I watched her video and then I went and read it for myself. And I gave it 5 stars because I just had such a fun time. I really ended up falling in love with these characters like Rune, whatever his name is that start with the T that like is the merman, and even, oh, this is so dusty, wow. And even, there are a lot of characters that I fell in love with, okay? There are a lot of characters that I fell in love with. A lot of side characters. I really love the found family aspect in this book. I really love, like, the whole, like, group of boys. Like, I don't know, they just all gave off, like, frat boys. But, like, this is a fantasy novel. I really just love the characters, which it says a lot for me because I'm not a character-driven person. I did not give a fuck about, like, the main character or her love life or Hunt. I didn't care about either of them, and so I feel like this book kind of focused a lot less on them and more of the side characters, and I really loved and appreciated that because I ended up loving the fuck out of these side characters. Like, these are some of the best side characters I have ever read. And I don't talk about this book a lot because I know that the author is controversial and I don't want to really shed any light on the book. The book actually was in like my top 5 of 2022, but I didn't include it because I know how controversial the book is. And I don't want people who, I don't know how to explain it. I don't really know how to talk about separating the art from the artist. So I haven't really talked about this book this year. I probably talked about it when I read it. I think I talked about this book twice on my channel. And I probably would have talked about it a lot more if Sarah J Maas wasn't so controversial. But I don't really know how to go about it. And like, obviously I could have just not read it. But definitely understand if people are mad at me for reading this. But I am still trying to figure out how I want to do separating the art from the artist. And I know like how people are on the internet and like how like mob mentality is. And like how people think that like just because they don't agree with what you say, like you shouldn't do things because they think that you shouldn't do it or whatever. But I mean, I really don't know how I personally want to go about it. I did just want to mention this in the video, and it's probably like the last time I mentioned this book, to be honest. But I did want to mention it because I like this book and a lot of people hated this book. A lot of people like this book. This is a very polarizing book. A lot of people who loved the first book hated this book, and I think it's because, what is the main character's name? I think because Bryce is in it a lot less and people really attach themselves to Bryce, whereas like I don't really care about Bryce as a character, which is funny because I don't really I love like unlikable main characters. I'm not saying she's unlikable, but she's like that typical Sarah J Maas character. I think that Sarah J Maas's characters don't have a lot of personality. They just move through life and through books. And like, I don't really care about Hunt, which is like their love story. I don't really care about what the fuck they had going on here. And I think maybe that's why a lot of people didn't like this book. And this book did focus on a lot of the side characters. But personally, I think for Sarah J Maas, that was probably the best choice. Because I don't really think that like Hunt and Bryce are like really strong characters, to be honest. The next book I have is Good Girl Complex. This is a romance book. This is very controversial. This is like very much Wattpad. This is very much Yeah, very much Wattpad. Like, so this is about this guy. He works at this bar, and this other guy comes in, and he is an asshole to one of the women bartenders. And so the male character, he stands up for her, and the guy ends up being like this really rich guy, like runs the town or whatever. So the main character ends up getting fired, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna seek revenge. So for revenge, he decides that he is going to get his girlfriend to fall in love with him. And so that is the plot of this book. Very much like a bet plot line, which is like was very popular on Wattpad, where like they would be like, I bet I can get this girl to fall in love with me. And like, I used to eat that trope up on Wattpad, okay? So everyone knows how like unethical that trope is now, so like the book really isn't written about. So when I heard that that's what this book was about, I ran to it, because sometimes I like trash, and like it was my favorite trope growing up on Wattpad. And like I just feel like, do we all need to be ethical all the time? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get a little unethical from time to time when it comes to certain things. Not like let's not like go too far though, you know, let's not do too much. But like, if we can bring back some of the Wattpad tropes, I personally wouldn't mind it, because like the bet trope 8, it was so terrible. It's such a terrible trope. Like, so like I understand why people didn't like this book, but I thought this book was fun. It was very like summer. I read it in the middle of summer. It meant to be read in the middle of summer. I have not read Bad Girl Reputation, because I feel like that one's perfect for the summer, but it came out in fall. But I don't know, I don't publish books, so maybe it's when it's meant to be read, I don't know. But yeah, a lot of people hated this book, rightfully so. I just had fun, and this is like one of the first books that I've read where like I knew people hated it and I still read it anyways, and I knew I was gonna like it, and I did. Or like I didn't change my rating when I saw how much everyone hated it, even though I knew I was going to. I don't know. The next book I have to talk about is BookTube's most, damn, this book got cat hair every fucking where. BookTube's most hated book. Everyone fucking hates this book, and I had the time of my life. Now, I did have the arc, and I would definitely never reread this book. I'm not gonna put myself through that, but I enjoyed this book, to say. Like I said earlier, I really don't read horror books to like really love the characters or anything. So yes, did a lot of the characters read like the same person? Yeah, they did. But like, I don't really read horror or thrillers for the characters, because they don't really make good characters, to be honest. Like I'm so used to horrors and thrillers not having like characters with personalities or characters with different personalities, especially with authors who only write horrors and thrillers. Like I'm so used to them, all of them reading like all of their books, the characters reading the same. So when they read the same in one book, I never even really noticed the difference, to be honest. I didn't really care about that. And I know that like a lot of people's biggest gripe with this book is the end, but personally for me, I had so much fun reading this book. Also, like I said, I had the arc, and when I was reading this book, I was on like this family thing at a hotel, and me and my mom were sharing a bed. Me, my mom, and my brother. My mom kept taking up all the blankets, so I couldn't sleep. So all I did was read this ebook on my phone all night long, because it was the only thing I had to keep me warmth and comfort, because my mom was taking up all of the fucking bed sheets. So I also have an attachment like that, and then it was like I have fun when I was reading it. And my favorite thing about this book is that it like has like every character has their own story. Oh, let me tell you what this book is about, just in case you might not know what this book is about. This book is about these final girls who all end up in this support group. They all have had like their own stories, and they're in this support group, and one of the girls ends up dying, and they realize that someone is coming after them. So it's up to the main character to put a stop to it, basically. And I love that all these characters were based off of popular horror movies, and because I love horror movies, that was my favorite thing. And my favorite thing was like trying to guess and see like what was the original horror movie and things like that. And I think that is what made me love this book the most. Was the ending good? No. Did I see it coming? Also no. But it still wasn't good. Like, it's still, I'm not saying the ending is good. I gave this book 4 stars. I didn't absolutely love this book, but I didn't hate it like everybody else did. And like when people like talked about it and it came out, and everybody hated it, first of all, imagine my shock, because I had an arc, and I'm like, everybody about to eat this book up. And then everybody started reading it, and everybody was like 2 stars. I was like, oh. So you can imagine my shock, because I thought everybody was gonna eat it up. but then like I ended up changing my rating, I think, to 3 stars because everybody else like pretty much hated this book. It either got 2 or 3 stars. But then I really thought about it and I'm like, I'm sorry, but I had fun when I read this book. I had a good fun time, and that's what I think matters the most sometimes, especially when I'm reading genres that like I don't particularly like read all the time. So if I find something that I think is fun, like, so what if everybody else hated it? Okay, and then the last 2 books I have I don't own physically, so I just saved them to the end because if you didn't know, I actually hate adding in pictures to my videos, but for some reason I want to hold up the books, so whatever. The next book I have is The Woman in the Window. This book, pretty much everyone loved this book when it came out, but then when everybody figured out that the author was a shitty person, everybody kind of changed their ratings. And I personally did not change my rating because I thought the book was good. This is a thriller. It is about this woman who cannot go outside of her house, and she sees someone like murder her neighbor, and so she's trying to like figure out what's going on, but from her own like house. And I thought it was like a pretty fun and interesting read, and the plot twist in the end got me. I thought it was a good plot twist. I didn't see it coming. It gave a little bit of scream in my opinion. So I liked it. And then the last book I have is The Mistake by Elle Kennedy. So this is in the, I want to call it the Deal series so bad. The off-campus series. Briar U. One of those. I can't remember. This is like the 3rd book in that series, and this is everyone's least favorite book. The book is still ranked high on Goodreads, but I remember, I mean, people might have changed their minds since then, but when I read it, which was like last year, this is like my favorite book in the series. This one is about Logan, and I don't remember her last name. I mean, I don't remember the girl's name. Hannah? That could be someone else's girlfriend. I don't know. It's about Logan, and I like this one because this is like one of my favorite plot lines. It's about like a player who hooks up with a girl, and like she kind of doesn't really give a fuck about him, like, and it kind of is like, what, you don't like me? Like, they have sex and everything, and he's like, you're not coming back for more. I really want that trope like kind of fleshed out. I might have to write it myself, but I really want that trope but more fleshed out. But personally, like, I know a lot of people hated this book, but personally I thought it was like fun, and it was different from like the rest of the books in the series. But yeah, that's it for this video. I hope that you liked it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next one.